Joining us now is former Governor of New Hampshire, John Sununu. Good morning, Governor.
Morning, Allison. How are you?
I'm well. Is the president under investigation or not?
Mueller is investigating the Russian involvement in the election, and probably involved in that is an examination of what happened with the Comey firing. That's a broad investigation. I think what you're hearing from Seculo is that the White House hasn't been notified that the president is being personally investigated. I don't think there's an inconsistency between those 2 points, and I think those are the only facts that we know on the table, and people should understand that's what's going on.
Should the White House know if the president himself is being investigated for obstruction of justice?
The White House, if the president is being investigated for obstruction of justice, the White House should have been officially notified. And Seculo is telling you that that hasn't happened, and I think we have to take that at face value until we hear otherwise.
So you don't think that the reports are accurate that the president is under investigation by Bob Mueller for obstruction of justice?
Look, that all came from the Washington Post, and we remember what Ben Bradley, the iconic editor of the Washington Post, used to say about the Post. The Post doesn't print the truth, it prints what we're told. And I think it falls in that category. Somebody told them that, and they chose to print it.
Are you bothered by any of these possibilities?
I'm bothered by the fact that what bothers me the most, and there must be a reason for it, is Mueller making 4 of his first hires so blatantly biased lawyers, pro-Democrat lawyers, with a bias certainly against the president. Now, Mueller must have some idea in mind, and if I put the best gloss on that I could possibly do, is that maybe Mueller has decided internally that this isn't going anywhere, and that the only way he can have credibility on a decision saying that there's nothing there is to have that decision come from a group of lawyers that are so blatantly biased against the president.
Are you talking about the 3 lawyers, at least that I know of, but maybe there's another one, who contributed to Democratic candidates, one of whom contributed to both Democrats and Republicans, but more so to Democrats? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, they're included in there. There's also a lawyer there who has a history of a kind of strange perception of what obstruction of justice is, and has had some difficulty having that sustained in appeal. Those are the kinds of things that I'm surprised that Bob Mueller would take a chance on. It's not. I'm not arguing that these folks can't come to a constructive decision. I'm just surprised that he didn't take that into account as he built the team.
So are you saying that you are losing faith in Bob Mueller?
No, I'm not. I actually think Mueller was a good choice. I think the White House is making a mistake attacking Mueller. I think Mueller can come to a constructive conclusion. I don't think they ought to be pushing him into a corner where he might feel defensively that he has to come out with a conclusion he might not otherwise have come out with. I'm just saying that we live in a Washington where you don't always get in trouble just for doing something wrong. We live in a Washington where you can get in trouble for doing something right in a way that your enemies can make it look as if you did something wrong. And I think that's the fundamental problem with what we've seen over the last 3 months.
Governor, I've been struck the last few times you and I have spoken about the length that you now go to not blame Donald Trump for any of this. Since you were such a vocal and colorful critic of Donald Trump during the campaign, why do you not talk about how his tweets may now be getting in the way of this investigation or anything critical?
I agree they are. I agree the tweets are getting in the way. I think there's been a little bit of self-destructiveness in the intensity of the tweeting. And I certainly have told this to folks down in Washington at the White House. I think the tweeting, you're not going to stop it. But I do think there has to be a little bit of filtering, a little bit of more control, and a little bit of understanding of that last point that I made, that he may be completely right in what he's saying, but he can't do it in a way that makes it easy for people to twist it around to make it look as if he's done something wrong.
And remember during the campaign when you said this was January 3rd, you said Trump is clearly a man with no philosophy, no plan, no experience, and no understanding. We must not drink the Trump Kool-Aid. Have you come around to feeling more sympathetic towards Donald Trump.
Well, that was before he picked Mike Pence, for example, as his vice president. And I think Pence has brought a lot of rationality into the system. I think he brought a number of people into the game that really, I think, put a little bit of direction in the campaign. That was I brought that up in the campaign when, frankly, they were running aground. And I do think people can begin to have a focus. I certainly hope that the president remains consistent with what I have seen as a leaning towards the conservative side. I certainly hope that he uses his influence with Congress to get the legislation that he's
I heard you. So, I mean, so you're hoping for the
I had a choice between Trump. I had a choice between Trump and Mrs. Clinton. It was not a difficult choice at all.
I understand, but you're the person who said that he's a man with no philosophy, no plan, no experience, and no understanding. And so
at the time, that was correct. And between then and now, I think he's developed an agenda. He's developed a commitment to a Republican agenda in Congress. He has done things on foreign policy that I think have been very significant and positive. And as he continues to do the things that fit what I think ought to be done, I'll continue to support him.
And do you think he now has an understanding of those things that he didn't used to understand in your mind?
I think he has a much better understanding, including how complicated it is to deal in Washington with a vindictive and frustrated media.
Is that a swipe, Governor?
Yeah, it is a swipe at the media. You guys are fixated on an investigation that still has no clearly defined commitment of something wrong in the process, and you dwell on the nuanced difference of what Sekulow might be saying and the fact that Mueller has an investigation going, without pointing out to people that both of those can still be consistent, and that the president's tweets and what Sekulow said can have a consistency with them.
But not
You're
exactly,
always looking
Governor.
for,
I mean,
for the
if
problem.
you're not under
You're looking for
investigation,
the
then you are
problem
under
instead of
investigation.
identifying the facts. I'm
Oh.
sorry, I missed that.
Well, only that you're saying that it's consistent. It really, in particular, this is not consistent. That I am under investigation, the president is not under investigation. That actually is not consistent.
Actually, it is. When Sekulow speaks as a lawyer, he's talking about whether or not there's been a formal notification of the White House. When the president tweets, he tweets it in the context of Mueller being there, looking at the Russian situation, and certainly the campaign that Donald Trump and his folks ran. So there can be an investigation of the Trump activities in a broad term, the Trump campaign activities in broad terms, and what happened there, and Sekulow telling you that there's been no official notification to the White House that the president's under investigation.
Okay, that is a nuance that the president hasn't explained, but we appreciate you explaining it. And the good news is
that's my job.
We have it. In fact, it is. We have Jay Sekulow coming up right now so that he can explain it better to us.